Well, hey everybody, welcome back. This is Eric Brown, your Beverly Hills real estate agent, bringing you the best of LA, where I share unique or really cool or insightful local businesses here in the Los Angeles area and how you can connect with them. So, my treat for you today is actually a good friend of mine, Dr. Richard Oelberger, who is a psychologist and a performance coach. And so we're going to get into the sights and sounds and mind frames of things performance related and anything else under the sun that Dr. Richard would like to talk about. So thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I always love to begin. Tell me how you got into this world of performance and psychology.
Oh wow, down the yellow brick road we go. You know, I've always been fascinated and curious. I think that's where it started, and my book, which I'll get to later, I started to realize in the last few years how much my father, who graduated without a college degree, taught me about listening, caring, taking in the story of an individual, and a lot of that he molded from being a car salesman. So I think I always had that curiosity with the families on my block, where they came from, growing up in New York, my mother being a school teacher in Harlem, always just curious and interested in helicopters as well.
Yeah. Well, and we talked about this offline, and not to jump in, as you hear background noise, it's so interesting to think of, you know, coming from a big city like New York or being here in Los Angeles. We always are kind of expecting perfection, but then things like this will happen in our lives. And so that might be an area that we touch on as we kind of tackle through really loud noises and the occasional disruption in our lives.
Yes, and you talk about performance consulting. As a lifelong athlete and someone who's always been a fan of sports, I always got curious about distractions. How do athletes stay focused? What is it about a team that makes a winning team? How come some of my favorite teams that were successful seem to be joyous and playful, and yet at the same time be able to compete at the highest levels at these crucial moments of most intense pressure? So both as an athlete myself and having seen the ways in which I struggled or were passionate, or the things that made me love and embrace sports at different times, or get turned off and want to close away or freeze up in different moments, I became curious about what were these unique ingredients.
Sure.
And being in a position to help athletes coming along now, especially now with the professionalization of sports at a young age, especially in the Los Angeles area, the more tools there are to improve yourself, to help your focus, to help your ability to react across many sports, the more tools there are, there's also the pressure to perform at a higher level and sustain from a younger level. So I wanted to help people, I guess, like me, teenagers or young athletes who are still trying to figure out life and managing their money, or who they are as a human being, and still help them find what their version of success would be and to live life on their terms.
And I think that's really insightful and applies to so many people in their lives. But it does beg the question, if there are types of clientele that you work with over others or under others, you might be able to help all, but do you have a focus?
I mean, high-performing professionals in the Los Angeles area does go across creative professions. I like to think I can help the everyman. I can help the father who's trying to build his entrepreneurial business. I do work with doctors. I do work with lawyers, entertainment professionals. I happen to have a niche in helping young athletes, so if that is your profession, desire to move into mixed martial arts, baseball, soccer, football. So some of these skills are applicable across professions, and some of the pressures that a lawyer faces before giving testimony or standing in front of a boardroom are very generalizable. So, you know, I'm here, I do have a focus on helping men, and I do think there's some common threads that men face, but I can really help anyone who's a high-performing individual, particularly someone who's trying to expand their scope from success in one realm to multiple realms of life. Oftentimes I get calls from former athletes who are now trying to succeed in business, an athlete who's also a business person who's now trying to grow in relationships. So really, it's anyone who wants to excel in multiple realms of life and lift the cap off of their growth.
You know, as you touch on these different segments, it makes me think a little bit about, I can only imagine the changes that have happened in the space of not only working with the powers of our mind, but when you think of all the things that are happening outside, be it political, personal, technological, that have changed and how that relates to our worlds. Can you touch on that, how you find people are affected and how you help them?
I mean, the world is moving faster. You and I think, did a podcast like this without ever having met during the pandemic. So obviously, the world technology is for the field of psychology and sports and performance. There are more tools to test your reaction, to be able to, through your thumb and your phone, be able to check your respiration and your breath rate. These tools are extremely powerful. We all have rings that we can check our sleep and the quality of our sleep. So technology and tools are becoming more important. There's apps that can track your focus, create routines for your performance or for your own self-care, for your focus every day, which are excellent. And when I do try and apply some sort of a menu for my clients of what will help optimize the way you're living and help you as a resource. On the other hand, the more our phones can be now become a distraction with all these devices, and there can be such a pressure now that to use so many things that it becomes about results and so much information. Too much information can also lead to paralysis and more stress. So I think it's less about what you use as much as how you're using it, about yourself, how you're interpreting it. Is there a balance? Do you have time away from your phones? I personally recommend for most of my clients a 24-hour communications break. If you can get that, maybe that's harder at the higher levels of professional. Certainly if you're a surgeon or a professional fighter that could get a call at any moment's notice, that could be hard. But can you create blocks of time where you're checking and engaged and on social media, or do you create periods of time maybe in season where you're not responding to social media? I know young athletes that just will not go on there. The amount of, not just the time, but the emotional energy that can go into reacting to a lot of the negative energies that's out there online can become such a place for misdirected anger. And we're using sports and as a place for a lot of our hope and release and excitement, and also a lot of place to put our anger and disappointments. So it's important to have layers of filaments of self-protection built in and boundaries. So we work on that, and that could be with your devices and social media. That could just be with your family members and friends who want more and more of you all the time and don't necessarily understand that you need sleep, recovery time,
right,
decompressing time. It's about defining what we need for ourselves rather than letting the external define us, and that can be very challenging.
As you touch on social media, it makes me think of the thousands of ways that we are impressed upon in a given day, between the phone calls and the whatever app that it is that we're using, driving by and seeing billboards, all of these things. And so it's nice to be able to have, as you mentioned, this idea of how you gather balance or decompression or what have you. And I've always found it's great when I can have a roadmap on some level. And this is maybe a great way to segue into talking a bit about your book and where the genesis of that was and where you hope to go and what you hope to teach people through it.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I wrote the Zero Method, currently available on Amazon or Kindle, based on a tribute to a name that I was given on Skid Row. They couldn't pronounce my last name, Oelberger, so they misinterpreted the O for a zero. And I used it also because it was a stage, personally and professionally. We're going to work on Skid Row. For many of your LA viewers, you may be familiar with it or drive through it in downtown LA. It's the most missions and I believe homelessness in the nation. And as a place professionally that when you go down there to work, it's certainly not the most comfortable. It's not Beverly Hills. It's not the most glamorous. And the state of kind of not knowing what to do. And ironically, to help other people in my profession and in many other professions, we somehow have to say to ourselves, I don't really know. I'm lost. I don't know what the next step is. Some of it is we're just following these external maps or guides where we're supposed to get to next, what step we think we're supposed to take. Someone is dictating for us. You're supposed to go for the promotion. You're always supposed to be moving forward, right? Outward, upward. It's kind of the model of our society. So my book creates, it goes into several different domains of life, taking a look at yourself, your self-care, your relationships, your mentors, your practices for your vision, your spirit, your soul. What are the ways in which you connect and ground yourself? So it allows you to kind of a self-inventory, and you may be really strong in several areas and have one or two. So it allows you to kind of self-assess, and it does from telling some practical stories, both about Skid Row and from what I learned, from my father's journey as a car salesman, and just my own experiences about what helps me achieve happiness, what helped some of the ideas that I had that I think kind of held me back, or that I see commonly now, having seen and treated clients over 20 years in private practice. So I hope it's a resource, particularly for men or for those you're in relationship with, if you're not ready to start therapy, or if you're just this stage of self-exploration, to help yourself. Because in the end of the day, no matter how great or experienced the coach or consultant or therapist you work with, it's the individual work that the client has to do for themselves that makes the difference.
Yeah, that's great. And I don't know if you notice this as a viewer as you're watching this video, but how often Richard has talked about the concept of helping yourself, getting help, leveraging the power of others to be able to assist you. And it's one of the things that I love about you and your practice is your mission of being able to help others. We're going to pop all of Dr. Oelberger's contact information here, his website, if you have questions, if you just want to talk, if, as he had mentioned, you're curious about the exploration of this process. All of that, again, will be here for you to touch base. This is a great spot to say, is there anything as a parting word that you might want the viewers to know, something that we talked about, a buzz thing that we should touch on?
I think this time of year is challenging. I think we're all looking to renew. We've put our attention outward on trying to give to others and grab celebration, and now is the perfect time to put the focus back on you. There'll always be another burning flame or crisis to put out, but more than ever, taking care of ourselves is the secret sauce that will help you become more powerful than ever. And if having a call with me or reaching out to a friend to set goals that are far exceed beyond what you've set out to before, be willing to take the risk on you.
I think that's great. Thank you. This was lovely and so insightful. Hopefully you also got some insights here. As mentioned, please connect anytime with Dr. Oelberger. Contact information is on the screen. As always, this is Eric Brown, your Beverly Hills real estate agent, bringing you the best of LA. Tune in for the next time where we can see other cool businesses here in the area and how you can find them. Until then, this is Richard and Eric signing off.